Do you feel behind? Like God gave you something to give to the world, and yet it felt like you missed your moment? Like God gave your calling to someone with a prettier feed or better timing, and well, this episode is for you. You see, I know you because you're like me. You've been scrolling and spiraling. You might see that they've launched their thing that you wanted to launch. They finished their book. They built the business. They're raising those unicorn children. And meanwhile, you're trying to keep your house from looking like a scene from Hoarders, Ministry Edition. Yeah, I get it. A lot of times it feels like we are behind. And I want you to know something. You are not behind. You are in process. And God's timing is perfect. You are not going to miss it. See, God doesn't work off your planner or your Instagram highlight reel. He works off of his plan and his timing. I remember many years ago, I was in the process of hoping that God would give me a place to minister and to teach and all the things. And here I was this 19-year-old woman who had really began to have some favor in my life. All of a sudden, I began to travel and speak. And I was being invited to not big places like 10, 15 people, but these events where I would go and speak. And I was cleaning houses on the weekends and speaking on the weekday, cleaning houses on the weekday and speaking on the weekends. And at one point, I was invited to be on staff at this church in Redding, California called Bethel Church. And here I was, 19. It was a dream job. Oh my gosh, of course, I would love to be on staff as a pastor. I wasn't even a pastor at the church I was at, and I was going to be a pastor for a Friday night service. And I just thought, this is amazing. But God said no. I mean, he said no so clearly, it was undeniable. And I knew that if I said yes, I would be disobeying him. Well, fast forward, I told the people that invited me no. And Bethel doesn't just stay this cute little mountain town church. No, it explodes. I mean, we're talking like massive growth. Like thousands of people from all over the globe start to know about this church, and they know about the speakers and the leaders and the impact of the music. And here I am. I'm still the girl, now about 10 years older, working at my church, faithfully serving, doing the thing that God asked me to do. And it just felt like I had been completely missed. Like, God, why would you tell me no and then have it go viral and have all this impact? And here I am still doing the same thing for the same amount of people. And quite frankly, they were not as impressed as I would have hoped they would be. So I understand this feeling. And I think a lot of times in our lives, we get stuck in this feeling of like, did I miss something? Did God, accidentally forget about me? And we sometimes feel like we miss our window. Like there was an opportunity, and because we said no, did everything fall apart? In fact, I think there's a deep thing in all of us that have ever had this experience where we have this dark part of our story that we think if I had just said no to that, or I had just said yes to that, then it all would have been different. I know that feeling, and I think a lot of us have dealt with that. And I really kind of want to unpack that and maybe expose the lie of that reality. Because I remember the enemy just kind of always whispering to me, like, you missed it. Like, you were made for this, but it didn't happen. Like, you should have said yes. You should have said yes, even though the ones around you, the council around you said no. You should have overridden that and done what you wanted to do. And I remember feeling like I was drowning in the mundane and the divine had passed me up. Like the miracle had passed me up. And I remember feeling this sense of like, if I had just, because I think that there's a space where all of us kind of the shoulda, coulda, wouldas. If I had just, and I could have, and I should have, and I would have, and we can get caught up in all of that. And I really want us to understand that if God said no, or you didn't say yes and you should have, but you're now saying yes to him, I believe that there's delay and there's a divine delay, and that God actually will oftentimes delay something to reinforce our future because there's a plan in it. I was watching this series once, and I remember there was this actress who had won these massive awards, and she was kind of a no-name, and she was being interviewed. I think it was on Oprah back in the day, and she was being interviewed about, wow, look at your acting, and look what you've pulled off, and isn't it incredible? And they said to her, well, why do you think this is all happening right now? And the woman looked at Oprah and she said, I think it's about timing. She said, it was just my time. Like, it just was my time. I don't know how to explain it. It's just the windows opened, and it was about timing. And I believe that so clearly when I ended up, and I'll tell you the spoiler alert at the end in a minute. So let's just go to Philippians chapter 1, verse 6 first, so we can ground this in truth. It says, and I am certain that God, who began a good work within you, will continue to work until it is finally finished. This is really powerful because this is not only a promise, but there is an active, present God who's working it out for our good, Romans 8:28. And so that word began, for God who began the good work. Who began it? Did you begin this or did God? Well, I guarantee that if it's part of his plan, he was the one that began it, not you. And it means this in the Greek. It means to initiate something with divine intentionality. To initiate something with divine intentionality, it's like a construction term for foundation work. So here's what's important is you are under construction. You weren't ready to build the house because you needed the foundation to be built. And so you can't rush a foundation. I mean, this is, again, that whole scripture, those that build their house upon the sand, it doesn't last. We have to build our house upon the rock. And building our house upon the rock often means we have to say no to building fast and we have to say yes to building slow. And so nobody just slaps on drywall and nobody just fakes a good, strong house. No, it takes time and deliberate intention. And to be honest, in our lives, he's saying, listen, I am certain that God, who began divine intentionality in you, will be faithful to continue the work he started. And so what does it mean to be finished? Because it says the God who began will finish. That word finish in the Greek is a really powerful word. It means to perfect, to complete, and to fully execute. What it means is he finishes what he starts in his timing, not yours. It means that he knows what he's building. And so we can say, oh, I want you to do this because I know that's where we're going. And God says, no, you don't know what the end looks like. You can assume what it looks like because you want the feeling of what it's going to look like. But I know what I'm doing in you. And I don't want you to, have this kind of incomplete, lack of real, substance kind of work. No, I want it to be completed to final excellence, and what I started in you will be completed. So it's very, very important that he finishes what he starts. And there's this part of us that live in that tension of, you started it, give it to me and I'll finish it for you. And he goes, stop. I started it. Now wait. Sit in the tension of waiting for me to finish this work. So how do we start to apply this tension in our life of how do we reframe that idea that we're behind? Because that's how I felt at 25, not being married, not having kids, not owning a home, not having a career. I felt so behind. And that I lived with that for a really long time. And I had to really reframe it. And now obviously it's easier for me to say it, but I can go back and remember these critical truths that I had to kind of lean into in order to make it and to be here today. First one is simple. I have to replace the I am behind with I am becoming. So I am not behind as a parent. I am becoming a better parent. I'm not behind as a leader. I'm becoming a better leader. It's that idea. If I'm behind, it means that the future's already been set, that there's no way to fix it. But the I'm becoming says that there's future, that there's something in front that makes it worth waiting for. You are not late. You are layered. This is important. There's a layering work. He's building a foundation. He's putting up the framing. He's putting the drywall. He's putting in he's building something here. He's not just presenting something. He's building something. And so let him build what he's building in you. Stop trying to control it. Stop trying to hurry it up. Let him build what he set out to build, because you don't know what he's supposed to build. Look at me for a minute. Stop assuming you know what he's building. You don't. It's distracting and it's becoming an idol to what he wants to build in you. I could never have imagined that he would build what he's built in me. It took way too long. It was a ton of work. I probably wouldn't have signed up for it if I had known how much it would take and how much it would invest. But now looking back, I'm like, wow, God, you built this beautiful life. Well done. And he goes, yeah, you had to get your hands off of what I was building and let me build it, and stop telling me how to build it and let me build it. That was really profound for me. Secondly, this is very important. You want to celebrate others' wins, but don't make it your timeline. So we can say, I'm so excited that's happening for you. I'm so excited you got the job. You're moving forward. You got this success. But that success does not define my timeline. It does not define what my life is going to look like. And so when we let other people's success or opinions or perspectives define our timelines, it gets crazy, because God doesn't work on regular timelines. Look in the Bible. So many things were out of the right time, and yet it was his divine time. And so I want you to understand, you can celebrate it. You don't have to dismiss it. It doesn't cancel out the fact that they are in the right timing, but it can't define if you're a success or not. And then thirdly, ask what's being built in me that couldn't be built in the in the fast lane. So like, let me say it again. And then thirdly, ask the question, what's being built in me that couldn't be built in the fast lane? Like, what is happening in me that I need this time to grow and build and to happen slowly? Because God's pace protects my placement. And I want to say this very clearly. I remember asking God, why did you make me wait 10 years, almost 15 years before I had the impact that I really felt called to have? I mean, I just knew. And I want to fast forward this moment because I told you the story about saying no. Well, fast forward, it was another 15 years when I got invited, my husband and I, to come be on staff at Bethel Church. And when I got to Bethel Church, the hand of God was on my life, and he gave me tremendous favor at Bethel. I went from nobody knowing who I was to being able to travel the globe and meet a lot of people and have books written and messages and have a lasting impact. But I did not know what God was doing. So in the middle years, I remember thinking, why did you have me do this? Like, why was it I could have been using all my youth and all my passion, all my resources to build what I'm building now, but like not be exhausted and not have 4 kids and all the things. And he said, because I like to build things in autonomy and in private. I like to build things that no one's going to see. And it's much safer for you to go through learning lessons when the eyes of the world are not on you, rather than everybody monitoring how you're functioning and how you're handling the character that you're growing. I now look at that season of being somewhat invisible to the world, but totally visible to heaven, right? But having that season, I now look at it and go, thank you, God. You let me practice being a leader. You let me practice messages. You let me, build the kingdom without somebody watching me or posting about me or all the things. Being anonymous was a gift. It allowed me, and again, now that there's somewhat of eyes on what I do, gosh, I long for that privacy, because there's something so beautiful about doing the right thing for the right reason and nobody's watching, and being able to fail without anybody noticing. That is such a gift. So again, God's pace protects our placement. If God puts you in this fast lane and quickly gave you favor, you may not have the foundation to keep that favor happening. And that's what I see in a lot of people's lives. Favor gives the impression that there's more under the surface. Character is what's under the surface. And so a lot of times we get discouraged when we see somebody not have the character to sustain the call. And I would say to you, that's because foundations have to be built in private. It have to be built slowly. And when we as a church or as a community lift somebody up so fast and they haven't had time to prove themselves, they haven't had time to fight the lion and the bear, and we want them to fight Goliath, and they fight Goliath, and then we give them kingship, but they don't know what it's like to actually run after the bear, run after the lion and kill them, and know those small successes, then we expect them to be able to sustain an integrity and a character that can only be done in privacy. It can only be done when no one is looking. And so not only, but it's easier. So I would just say to many of us, it's not punishment when God says no, it's placement and it's preparation. And if I had known that, I got to build a family before I did what was on my life in that way. I got to meet the love of my life. I got to see people. I got to love the local church. Like, I would have never known the local church as if I had just at 19 gone to a church that went global, and I wouldn't have had the opportunity to know what it takes to be a real leader in a real world, and to what it looks like to set up every week, and what it looks like to have people go to the church next door, and the pain of that. I would not have known all of that. I wouldn't have known that my theology was a little weak, that my messages were not just, wow, you're part of this movement, but is it actually having impact? I would not have known. I wouldn't have written books. I wouldn't have done the things that God had called me to do. I'm sure of it. And his no was absolute placement for me, and it was very important. So I want you to hear these truths today. You haven't missed it. You were made for it, and it's just about timing. Progress doesn't always post well, but it produces deeply. So understand that this is very important of what's happening under the surface. God's not rushed. He's building something that will last. He who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it, so trust him. Delayed doesn't mean denied. It means designed. I'll say that again because that's very important. Delayed does not mean denied. It means that he's designing the thing he wants to build in you from the very beginning. So here's my final charge to you. Don't scroll yourself into shame. Don't trade your real life with someone's curated version. Don't let a fake deadline rob you of divine development. Can I say, do not let the world's timeline cause you to have anxiety. God is the author of time and space. If he wants you to have it, it doesn't matter how old you are, what season it is. Stop letting the earth's timeline shape your faith in what God can do. God has his own timeline. You are not late. You are not denied. You are absolutely being developed and formed for this season. So don't fake don't fake the deadline, and don't let it rob you of your divine development. Listen, you are not behind. Sweetheart, you are not behind. You are not missing anything. Son, he will get you to where he needs to take you. You are right on time for what you were made for, because your faith, it ain't fragile. It's being formed. Stay planted. Stay present. He's building something in you that will shape generations. That's it for this month's series of My Faith Ain't Fragile. Faith Ain't Fragile. I hope you enjoyed it. If this spoke to you, will you leave it in the comments and let us know? I understand everybody asks for comments, everybody asks for subscriptions, but here's the truth. It is that critical. Like, no one can find this podcast unless you like it and subscribe. And that's how the algorithm shows it to other people. So the only way to give back, if you love this, is just give us those. You might think, they know I've been following her for years. But if you'll subscribe and you'll leave a comment, man, it really helps us get the word out, and it helps us create this podcast for everybody around the world. I love you guys. I hope this has encouraged you. We are going to jump into a brand new series coming up next month, in the month of July. And we are calling it Messy Faith, Massive God. We are going to look at that we don't have to have it all together to be smack dab in the middle of God's plan. And we're going to talk about what messy faith looks like and what a massive God can do. So if you're in the middle of July and you're in those summer seasons, the kids are home and you're living the dream, I think you're going to enjoy this series. So don't forget to subscribe. We're jumping into that next time. And if nothing else, thank you for being here. I love you, and I'll see you next time.